Hi, I'm Kiki.
And I'm Kemi.
And you're listening to
Your Advisors Will See You Now, a podcast that will help you to figure out all of your options for life after high school.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Your Advisors Will See You Now. Thanks so much for joining us and hanging with us through the beginning of the new year. So thanks for everybody for your support, continued support. We are starting a new series. I feel like we always have a new series, which is fun, it's cool. And we love alliterations around here. So our new series is called Money Matters. So we're primarily going to be talking about financial issues or financial literacy as well. So we'll have guests on to talk about their freedom journeys, we'll call it that, how to stay out of debt so that we can how to stay out of debt and make informed decisions so you're not getting into large amounts of debt. Maybe Kemi and I will share our debt journeys, debt freedom. I'm in progress with my debt freedom journey, so we'll share our journeys as well. But it's really just going to be about financial literacy. So welcome to our first episode of the Money Matters series. And we are joined by Ashley. Is it Strahm? Sorry, I didn't ask you before we started. Okay, Ashley Strahm. She's going to share her journey to debt freedom, which is really awesome. It's very admirable. So I'll let you introduce yourself. Welcome to the podcast. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, please, and we'll start with that. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thanks so much, Kiki. Thanks for having me here. I feel like these conversations are super important. So just honored to be able to share our stories with one another. I am originally from New Jersey. I now live in Durham, North Carolina, have been for about 10 years now, which is wild to say. I'll be 33 in a matter of days on Valentine's Day. And have been paying off debt for at least a decade of my 33 years. So it's been a while, a lot of stories to share there. But yeah, graduated from Elon University in 2012 with a degree in journalism. Back in the days when we were still laying out print newspapers on our Mac desktop.
Vintage.
Yes, vintage, like the OG journalism degree for sure. But yeah, live in Durham with my husband of almost 9 years and our little doodle. His name's Rudy, but he's kind of a schnoodle. He's a schnauzer poodle mix, and he has our heart. Aww. So just excited to be here.
Very cool. Well, I'm gonna first say we have a lot in common. Well, my birthday is the 28th of January, so we're close birthdays. I'll be 33 as well, and I have he's a Maltipoo, so I have a half poodle mix as well. His name is Theo. So you're like me. You and your husband are like me. I like to give my pets people names.
100%. Why not? They are little furry people.
There are people for sure. But thanks so much for sharing that. So let's just get into it then. So I'll have you start with what was your the debt journey? How did you accumulate debt? What was your knowledge or maybe lack of knowledge of credit or money, finances, things like that? What led you to get into debt? And if you want to share how much debt you had, you're welcome to share that as well.
Oh yeah, I'll give you all the receipts of where I've been. I think that's important too. So quick little context, my parents are Guyanese. So they came to the US, settled in Brooklyn, and had me and my younger brother in New Jersey. Education was always a very strict Caribbean immigrant sentiment. They felt like your college degree could never be taken from you. So that was it was a non-issue. Whether I would go to college or not was never really up for discussion. So I started applying. I went to, so in New Jersey, I went to a private all-girls school, specifically because I felt like the education that I had gotten prior to that was not going to benefit me in terms of scholarship. So I had always been one of those people knowing college is expensive, but I still really need to go. Let me turn over every rock to get all the funding that I possibly can because I knew my parents wouldn't be able to foot the bill. So I actually got into Elon when I was 16 years old on the heels of cancer. I was diagnosed with cancer my senior year in high school. I got this very rare cancer called angiosarcoma and kind of gave me a little bit of a lease on life. I was just okay, if I can get out of this, I definitely want my next chapter to be brilliant and beautiful and all those things. So as I was graduating, got into Elon super young and started applying to scholarships. Elon gave me half of each academic year covered in scholarships. So back when I was at Elon in 2008, every year at Elon was $33,000 a year, which is wild to even think about because I know it's got to be way more than that by now. But They were giving me about, you know, they were giving me about $15,000 a year to go there, which was going to cover room and board, tuition, all that other good stuff. Left me with about $15,000 that I had to self-fund. At first, my dad was like, let me take some money out of my 401k to help you go to college. And I kid you not, I knew nothing about 401ks, but I was like, that sounds risky idea. Isn't that the money you've been saving your entire career? Like,
right.
no thanks. Like, my degree, my problem, my debt. So from a very young age, I was like, this is me, this is my path, whatever. And I don't say that to brag. I just say that to say, like, I always felt like the debt that I was incurring was going to be mine. And I was very adamant about that. But I was also 16 and couldn't really sign for any loans on my own. So the first loans that I took out for Elon were Stafford loans and Parent Plus loans. And those are given by the federal government. My highest interest rate for the majority of my loans was 8.5%. I took out about 15K every single year. I was in school for 4 years, and that left me with, I want to say, a total of debt of about $64,000. So like, I took out 15K, interest obviously accrued at 8.5% while I was in school. And so I graduated with like 62K in debt. Started at Teach for America, which pays you about, I don't know, $25,000 a year.
Yeah.
And my lowest student loan payment, I was on a graduated plan, basically. So it like starts low, ends high. And like the lowest payment that I had was $500 a month. So I just started doing that. It was like rent, student loans, and then whatever else I had left over was like food.
Okay.
So that was like 2013 on. Get into like the specifics of like how I actually like chipped away at that debt, but that's how I got started. That is the initial accrual of like what my big boulder of debt looked like, was that it started at 62K. Yeah.
Okay. If you want to talk, if it like increased from there, or
Yes.
if if you want to get into that too, like we'll lay it all out there if you're comfortable. But yeah, if you want to talk about, so that was your student loan debt. So I'm assuming that was like part one, and there's like a accrual of other types of debt as well.
Actually, just that undergraduate debt. That is the debt that has followed me into adulthood. That
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have a mortgage, but like we have so much equity stored up in our home. I don't necessarily I feel like it's an asset. We could sell our home tomorrow and be debt free, but the student loan debt was the debt that like just kept climbing. I started at 62K. I was paying $500 a month, thinking that I was doing something.
Ooh, okay.
This is always something that I like to lead with, because people are like, wait a second, $500 a month. That's absurd. How much were you paying in the principal versus interest? And this is something that I didn't really find out about until I graduated at 21. I started teaching I was 22, 23, $500 a month, and seeing my balance grow. And what that effectively meant was that every single month I was paying $500 at an 8.5% interest rate. A student loan servicer was taking like over 75% of that payment, was just the interest. So I was really making like a negligible, maybe $55 a month payment toward the principal. So all of that stuff was stuff I had to educate myself on. I just thought a payment was a payment. I wasn't recognizing that like that 8.5% was really killing me. So I first I taught, then I started at like a small private school as their like director of communications. But again, like negligible salary. I was about like $50,000 a year. And my student loan payment went from $500 a month to $650 a month. This was just my attempt to like make more of a principal dent. And by the time I was 24, when I met my husband, I was making like, a $600 a month payment. And my student loan debt total was 82K. So like I had gone from 62 to 82 in like a matter of maybe 4 years. Yeah.
Okay.
And so that was like the pinnacle where like I met this man. He also came with his own student loan debt. So the two of us were a little cute little couple settled in debt. And I was livid. I was like, listen, I need you to know this about me. This is the debt that I'm carrying, but I'm really pissed about it. And I need to do something about it. And this is not the way I want to like begin my life with you in marriage. So we made a plan.
Okay.
And that plan to get out of debt was like kind of filled with a lot of potholes. One, I think both of us were like a little bit starry-eyed and thinking about what our political system in America might look like in terms of a debt forgiveness scenario. I was always very, I was like, not holding my breath for that. Not at
Right,
all.
exactly. I agree with
Right.
you. I feel you.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way. And then even if it is, it's probably going to be negligible. And then the second thing that I was thinking about was get out from underneath this 8% interest rate. And at the time, I was making student loan payments in my dad's name. Like I never missed a payment, but it was technically under his name. He had taken out
Okay.
that debt, and I really wanted the debt to be in my name. So a part of that was like, how do I consolidate this debt, get it in my name, and also have a lower interest rate than this 8.5%? And we
Mm,
paused on that for a year or two because we were like, what if something happens in the White House and these are federal loans and we consolidate them to a private loan and we no longer are eligible for debt forgiveness? So that was really the decision to be made, was like, if I took my
gotcha.
federal loans and I got a lower interest rate with a private company, Joe Biden, like, or Hillary
Right.
Clinton or whoever else, like, starts
Mm,
student loan forgiveness, we wouldn't be eligible. And my thought was, my student loan debt just ballooned 20K. Like, I can't wait. Like, by the time that happens, we'll be in six-figure debt. This is
yeah.
crazy, blah, blah, blah. So we pull the trigger 4 years into our marriage, and I refinanced with a company called SoFi. Not afraid to shout them
Hmm.
out. I actually think they're
Hmm.
like a very simple, like, it was simple, it was painless, and I had like a 5.75% interest rate at that point.
Okay.
And
Improvement.
once improve, it was like
Yeah.
life. It was life. Like those 3 percentage points was like everything. Like it allowed us, because basically we couldn't buy a house when we first got married because our debt to income ratio was so off. Like
Okay.
we
Sure.
were making enough for our mortgage, but the bank didn't believe that we could pay it. And so when we made that shift, like all of these doors open for us. We were able to buy a
Hmm.
house for $159,000 a year. And then in Durham, North Carolina, the housing market is crazy. So we sold it 3 years after that and used the margin on that sale to pay off my husband's student loan debt at the time, which was
Okay.
our first nut to crack. And I think he only owed about like $30,000. So it wasn't too crazy.
Yeah.
And then we just, for the last 6 years, yeah, of our marriage, we effectively just put his entire income toward my student debt. So we were living
Wow.
off of my income and paying $2,795 a month, about 4 years. And we finally got debt free like a year-ish and a half ago. So
Wow. That's
yeah, and we
amazing.
doubled
That's
our
incredible.
mortgage. Yeah, crazy.
Okay. Well, so I was, and that's like incredible just hearing you share, because even like when you were talking in the beginning, you like knew your interest rate, which I feel like I don't know my interest rate honestly for my student loans, but like I can tell, like you said, you educated yourself thoroughly, which
Mm-hmm.
is probably vital, which not probably, which is, I know is vital, when you're trying to pay off debt, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people probably don't know that your interest rate grows. Like you just said, the interest rate is really what like can put the damper on things, because it's like you started at 62,000, you said you went up to 82,000 like by the time you really started paying everything off. So that's just incredible, but it's a note to like why we need to educate ourselves previously, like before we even accumulate the debt, but while you're starting the journey, because people come out of college like, oh, and even that like 6 month grace period, it's like I don't have to pay anything. I think it's kind of like it's a trick. Like we should be paying things, but then you're also, it's like I don't have money to pay it. But like I just got out of college, so it's like a never ending cycle. That's what it seems like, a never ending cycle. So you all
Mm-hmm.
took action. Well, like I want to ask too, like how did you all come to the decision to like after you, like how did you all come to the decision to like sell your house to pay off your husband's debt, and then deciding that you're gonna use his income to pay off your debt? Like, because there's other, there's like many methods to pay off debt,
Mm-hmm.
but how did you all come to that specific decision?
It's such a good question, because the more I'm talking to people who are now in the trenches of paying off their student loan debt, after getting a financial advisor, which is like a big grown up thing that I did a couple years ago, I was like, help
Hmm.
me figure out like how to invest and like all this kind of stuff.
Right.
They were telling me that like their advice to people now would be to not just throw all of your eggs at the student loan. Like that was all I could think about for 10 years. And I didn't
Hmm.
really invest in a 401k, didn't really invest in a Roth IRA. Like there is an opinion out there in the world that one should be deciding to both pay off debt and invest at the same time. Like use your
Hmm.
20s. That's like a really big decade to like
Hmm.
just squirrel away something so that you can
Right.
let time kind of be the determining factor for how much you save. But at the time, I can't really describe it in any other way other than the fact that like it was affecting me as a person. Like I needed my debt gone. Like it just felt like a psychological noose around my neck. So like it really wasn't even a decision. Like
Okay.
we could have still been in that first house like and been fine,
Mm-hmm.
but we were almost looking at our house as like one more thing that we could leverage to like take a big chunk out of what
Mm-hmm.
we owed. And really we got lucky, right, with another home that we were able to afford at the same time. But I was like, wait a second. Like, in what other world could we make $30,000 in 2 years other than this house? Like, the house
Mm-hmm.
appreciated in value. So I was just like, that's $30,000 we don't have to earn. So like, let's
Mm-hmm.
just sell it and like see how
Got
it
you.
goes. And again, like Cody's loans, like he only owed like 30K, but he was paying like $72 a month. Very good about
Mm-hmm.
himself. He was like, look how low my student loan payment is. And I remember I was like, sir, let me see what these statements look like. And when I
Right.
told him when it was like $70 in interest he was paying every month, I was sick. I was like, we can't doing this. So, and honestly, it got personal. I was like, I feel
Sure.
like I graduated with an Elon degree and these student loan servicers are like taking my life away from me. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
stressed.
Mm-hmm.
I graduated years ago, but it like haunts me. It was like this whole thing. And so we thought like temporary discomfort just in terms of like him sacrificing his salary was going to be worth our 30s and 40s and 50s
Mm-hmm.
traveling and not having this big nut to crack because the amount of salary I would need to make in order to keep a $500 to $700 student loan payment for the next 15 to 20 years, like I wanted the
Right.
option to take a low paying job if I wanted to.
Mm.
And now I actually do, which is kind of nice.
Got you. So I would say then your motivating factor then wasn't even like it wasn't like motivation really. It was like your mental health sounds like that was the biggest thing. It's just like you said, it was personal. So it was like we have to make a change at whatever cost. So you would say
Mm-hmm.
like your like not just mental health, but I'm sure that was a part of it. Like your just overall wellness is probably what
Mm-hmm.
motivated you all to just keep doing it.
Finding, yeah. Like there is something about doing that paperwork and also like hearing these people on the phone, like when you call like FedLoan or you call whoever, like I get it. Everybody needs a job, but like there is no empathy. There was
Yeah,
no
no,
like,
it never, it never is.
there's just like they're heartless people. And I was just like, I feel like no one cares. Like we're all out here struggling and like no one cares
Mm-hmm.
what that feels like when you go to bed at night and all that kind of stuff. So it was really a change for me. I would say
Mm-hmm.
I could be a little selfish in saying like I didn't feel like I could show up as the best wife or the best daughter or the best friend or like whatever with all this hanging over my head. So 100%
Mm-hmm.
desperation,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I just like hearing you that that's like a blessing that your husband was even like was just like, yeah, we're gonna do this. Like this is what we're gonna do to pay off not only his debt but your debt. To like just pay off our debt. Like that's a huge blessing that he was on board with all of
That's
that.
so true. I'm gonna tell him that
Yeah.
you said this after this call because like
Yeah.
I think another like facet of it is like we're not gonna have children. Like we knew
Mhm.
pretty early on in our marriage that like we probably weren't suited to be parents. My parents were very
Mhm.
sacrificial. So I'm the child
Mhm.
of immigrants in every sense. And I was like, I don't
Right.
know if I have that level of like self-sacrifice in me. But
Mhm.
also the financial piece was huge. Like with
Right.
what money? Like
Yeah.
so like
That's
it was
real
like
life.
kind of twofold. It was the debt and then it was also like what is our future gonna look like? So lots of
Mhm.
big decisions were made.
Yeah. Well, you have a dogs are like they cost an arm and a leg honestly these days. So
They really do.
to raise a dog costs as much as it does to raise a kid in some sense, not in everything, of course. But I wanted to ask too. So like in the throes of like paying off the debt, and I'm going through my own like debt journey right now, or like paying off debt journey right now, and I'm like in a workshop, and we're talking about like budgeting, and I feel like budgeting is always like a very it's not a taboo word, but it's like a scary word. It's like, oh, we have to
Mhm.
budget, and that budget connotates like restrictions and like you can't live your life. So did you like well ask like did you all have a budget or like what was your budgeting like when you were going through your debt journey or debt freedom journey? And I guess like what is your take on budgeting? It's like we all do it knowingly or unknowingly, but like I'm sure you were probably more intentional about it. Would you say so? Or how was your budgeting too?
Yeah, no, I think that's like you're assuming so many kind things about me, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
I can't honestly, like, it's gonna sound crazy, but we didn't like sit down and say, only gonna spend, this much on groceries and this much on home improvement and this much on clothes or like anything like that. When I tell
Mhm.
you, we treated that student loan payment like our lives just had to revolve around it. Like we just
Okay.
like lived on whatever was left.
Mhm.
We It's unfortunate to think about it that way, but it really was like a singular focus of, okay, I need a roof over my head, I need food in my belly, and I need the student loan payment made. And there are
Right.
some people, my dad multiple times would be like, honey, like, you have a life to live. This is so sad to see you like living in such this like deprivation mindset. Like,
Mhm.
you still have to enjoy your life. You still have to like go, like, your student loan can't be the only thing that you're thinking about. But I can't imagine any other mindset that would have allowed me to like shell out $2,700 a month.
Right.
Like there's no budgeting for that. It's just kind of like whatever the like pie chart says is left is
Yeah.
what's left.
Mhm.
I wish I had more advice for people who, I feel like if you're dealing with like maybe a smaller nugget, I would say maybe this is to people who have like 30K in debt, less to pay off. Like I was dealing with like almost 100K in debt.
Mhm.
And when you have like a number that big, there's really no way to like to get it over with other than to take really large chunks out of it.
Mhm.
And
Right.
so I would just say, like, if you have any opportunity to have some upside, I'm talking like additional income, instead of like carving away what you're like currently making and like living in the margin, I would just say, do you have a job that can be monetized in terms of freelancing? Like
Mhm.
there were a
Mhm.
couple of times I would freelance for a few articles and I would get paid 500 extra
Okay.
dollars a month,
Gotcha.
and that would go to my student loan. So I wasn't necessarily thinking about like what's left for me to live on or like how do I like shave down these little areas of my life to accommodate the student loan payment. I was just more so thinking, other ways can I like bankroll my
Okay.
life so I don't feel as much of a burden here, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, no, it does. And that's real life. Like in the workshop the other day, they were like, and that's why I said sometimes like we are all budgeting, whether we know it or not. But like for your
Mhm.
form of budgeting, you weren't, and that like that's like totally fine because y'all made it through. Like it worked. But you weren't like sitting down, like you said, saying like we have to shell out, we have like this much for groceries, this much for gas. But I know, I'm sure in your head you knew like this is what I'm bringing in, and so this is what we have to live
Mhm.
off of. So that's a
Right.
form of budgeting too. Like to know what you have is a form of
True.
budgeting too.
True.
And I'm sure within that there was some level of like restriction, like we gotta, pull back on this, or like you said, you were self aware to be like, I have to freelance to bring some extra money in, and that's real. I mean, I feel like all of this is real life. So,
Mhm.
yeah. So in a little bit, like you mentioned the financial piece that you have. Like, what are some of the things that you're now able to do? Like, or you and your husband are able to do? You're able to do for your lives, like since you're both now debt free.
Oh, it's the fun part. It's the really
Yes.
fun part.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got over the rough part.
Yeah, well, we can stay in the rough part for as long. I mean, I'm a big proponent of student debt cancellation. Like, if it
Mhm.
happens for everybody else, like, yes. I'm
Yeah.
not one of
Mhm.
those people out here like, I had to go through this. Like, what is that?
Yeah, I know.
Like,
It's silly. It's silly.
that
It's
is
it's like
so
why can't
crazy to
everybody
me.
win? It is crazy.
Why can't everyone win? Like, I feel the freest and most liberated I've ever been. It took me like $123,000 to get there combined
Mhm.
with our
Mhm.
debt, and I'm happy it happened, but I also don't feel like anyone should have to live that way. Um, I we had this like cute little photo shoot where we like announced everybody. Whenever we say we have an announcement, people assume it's a baby. So we were like,
Okay.
we held up a little sign. We had all these balloons and everything, and we were like, a little money is on the way, instead of like a little honey, like a little baby. And people lost it. They were like, it kind of went viral on LinkedIn, like 13,000,
Real?
likes or whatever. Yeah,
Ooh,
it's super
okay.
cute. I'll have to send you the link. Yeah, I was just
Please.
mainly like, oh my gosh, like, what are ways that we can also celebrate the milestones that aren't like the
Mhm.
traditional ones? Because that is kind of one we're celebrating. But yeah, my husband and I both have remote jobs now. So we spent the entire summer in Europe last year, went to Amsterdam and
Wow.
Paris and London and lived abroad for a while, which was really nice. And we're going to go to Portugal and Spain
Mhm.
this year, as well as Argentina for a little while. And that's like our main thing. Like we just want to like experience the world and like money to eat and like drink good wine
Mhm.
and like do all that other stuff. And yeah, I think like the whole savings part of it now too. Like I'm really aggressive about
Right.
maxing out my 401k and like maxing out both of our Roth accounts and like trying to be
Mm-hmm.
really diligent about taking advantage of, how to make our money grow and not just like sit in our bank account, which it is. I mean, it's depreciating in value when you have savings in a savings account. It's like not doing
Yeah.
anything. So yeah, we're excited about all that. Good stuff.
No, that's super cool. The travel. I feel like the travel is probably like the win of it all. Were y'all traveling while you were like paying off debt? Were you able to do that, or was that kind of on hold?
And we did our little things. Like we would go down to
Yeah,
like Charleston or Savannah, or like we didn't
just
we
travel.
didn't just buckle down and like not leave the house, but it
Yeah,
definitely didn't
yeah.
look like it looks now. Yeah.
Okay, got you. And I guess like the point too I want to make is just because you're on a debt, like you're paying off debt, doesn't mean you have to be like restricted. Like there are
Mm,
times when maybe you can put some of the money or save or just like take little trips. Like you weren't going to Europe at that time, but
mm,
to get away, like just the point that you don't have to be locked down to your house and just eating like
Sardine
$1 meals.
sandwiches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Or like bologna, eating little tomato sandwiches all the time. Like you can still live your life. I'm speaking to
Mhm.
myself as well because I need to hear that. But yeah, you can still have freedom, like even while you're trying to get to the debt freedom as well.
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah, that's a highlight. Anybody listening, you can still live your life. It's fine.
True.
So next question, looking back, like what would you maybe is there anything that you would do differently, like starting from the knowledge, like the knowledge base of taking out student loans or things like that, or I'll let you answer. I won't put the words in your mouth, but like what would you maybe do differently looking back, if anything?
Oh, it's a good question. Can't I honestly I feel like some people ask like did you know? Like did you know like how hard it was going to be? I didn't know how hard it was going to be, but I did
Mhm.
know what I was getting myself into. I was
Mhm.
very clear on what debt meant. I wasn't clear on how debt would feel.
Mhm.
And I feel like I made a logical decision that turned out to be very emotional over the course of, that decade where I didn't realize that some arbitrary number on a spreadsheet and a bank account was going to like control a lot of the decisions that I made, the jobs that I took, like the people I networked with. Like I was
Mhm.
very ambitious professionally because I knew I had this tough nut to crack. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think I still would have gone to Elon. They gave me the most money for me to
Mhm.
get my degree, so I'm happy about that.
Right.
Um, I feel like if I wasn't so determined and like singularly focused on paying off the debt, I wouldn't have done it when I did. And I feel like I feel really good about it just being 10 years as opposed to 15 and like dragging it
Mhm.
out. I feel like I made a really good choice in a partner. Maybe that is like the X factor a little bit of
Mhm.
like
Yeah, for sure.
like determine who you want to share your life with and how those people can support you in your financial goals. I feel like that's really
Mhm.
important. Um, but yeah, I feel like my parents were a guiding force in like me becoming who I am today. And I can't say if I had a kid, which won't be my life path, but I feel like if I did have
Mhm.
one, like I'm not sure if I would be like, yeah, get a 4-year degree. Like I would be like,
Yeah. Mhm.
are there other ways for you to make good money in this world, right?
Right.
So that would
Mhm.
be my advice to anybody, I guess, like to come. It's just like think really long and hard about what that 4-year degree is going to afford you. I do think I got lucky in that I picked a major is transferable. So like, yes, I was a journalist, but I also
Yeah.
work in communications and marketing and some
Mhm.
other spaces. So like, I don't know how transferable some other majors might be. So just be conscientious about that. And
Yes,
yeah.
please. Well, no, I mean that's really a lot of our premise of the podcast, and you just said it. So to be 16, like 17, 18, also to be like that age and have to make a decision on your life is hard. And Kemi and I both went to like private schools as well, like yourself, and I still feel like we talk about it too. Like we didn't feel as prepared for having to make a decision on like what options we had out there.
Hmm.
I'm sure your school was like you're going to a 4-year school and your parents probably the same thing. That's how my mother was. That's how my school was. Like community college was not an option at all,
Hmm.
and I had one down the street from where I went to school. So I actually worked at a community college for 5 years and was very humble because I was like, oh, I could have came here, even if it wasn't just for my degree. They have
Hmm.
dual enrollment. They have classes I could have been taking. So that's really the premise of our podcast is, yeah, are there other ways to do what you want to do, degree wise, internships, trade school, things that will help you stay out of debt. So you said it, like that's the advice is like just explore all of your options that you have. If you know you have a career, like of course if you're going to be a doctor, you have to go to med school. You have to go to 4 year in med school. Like that's a non-negotiable. But there are plenty of things that don't require a 4 year degree.
Mm-hmm.
But a 4 year degree is not bad either. It's just make wise money decisions. So
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
yeah, that's the takeaway too. But I don't know, would you have like is there any other advice? Like you shared like a lot of good nuggets, but like, any other parting words of advice you have about the
Advice.
yeah.
I mean, well,
Even
one.
maybe yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you take it away.
I was going to say, like, my virtual door is always open. Like, I don't even know what questions to ask at this point. But if people have individual
Okay.
questions, I would love to make friends.
Okay. Oh no, that's perfect. Yeah, we always if you want to at the end, I'll let you shout out like how to contact
Okay.
you, and I'll definitely put it in the show notes as well. Because I think that's valuable. Like if people, so thank you for saying that too. If people can hear like, oh, you've been through this, they've not heard your journey, and you can give some advice, motivation that someone else needs to get through it. Then that'll be perfect. I'm sure they'd appreciate that for sure. But that's good advice. Yeah, one-on-one time is probably better than the generalized advice.
Yeah,
I was
for
gonna
sure.
ask. Yeah, we have one more question. I don't know. I think you kind of mentioned it already too. But how do you all like plan to like maintain where you are? And you mentioned like you're now like investing, saving, things like that. Would you say that's like how you're maintaining? I guess I want to ask too, because I assumed this is my bad at the beginning. I assumed that you had credit card debt too, which I'm assuming now y'all don't have credit card debt. So like what is your like frame like mindset around like debt now and like how to just stay out of that? And do you all use credit? And if you do, like how do you make good credit decisions?
Oh, it's a good question.
Of loaded.
I have incredible credit. I like to brag about it. Like anyone who wants
You
to talk
should.
to me about it, I'm like, I've worked really hard on my credit score.
You should brag about it. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I would say like my dad, I remember being really afraid of credit cards growing up because my parents would always like be like, it's it's Satan's, like
Okay.
this is the rah, rah, rah. And I was like, okay, like that's aggressive. There's a lot of Christian themes there that I didn't know how those two things overlapped, but it's fine.
Right.
And so by the time I actually got a credit card, which is like I was about to graduate from Elon, my dad would effectively say, this is how you build your credit. Starbucks once or twice a month, buy a coffee on your credit card and just like pay it off at the end of the month.
Hmm.
So like that's the way that I've always engaged in credit cards. It's weird now, right? Credit cards have these cool like bonuses that are like
Right.
you can travel, you can get points and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And I feel like it has just been better for us to not use the debit card. We effectively put all of our like expenditures outside of the home that
Hmm.
aren't like base bills that are wired to our checking account on our credit card. And we just
Okay.
pay it off in full at the end of the
Hmm.
month. So I would just say, like, again, like you're probably talking to somebody who is really fearful and anxious about debt. And so
Okay. Sure.
yeah, I'm a very all or nothing kind of person, unfortunately. Like, I don't really
Hmm.
know how to engage with like credit cards without just being like, okay, like if I can't afford it, then I just can't buy it. And I will say, like, even if it is a situation where I'm like, okay, I'm buying these like $4,000 plane tickets to Portugal or whatever it's going to look like, forecasting
Hmm.
like 4 to 6 months in advance to be like, okay, in this big expenditure now, what does the rest of my 6 months to a year need to look like in order for me to not
Right.
feel this? It's just
Hmm.
like a good thought process. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I hear that completely. And maybe the fear that your parents put in you helped a lot too about credit cards. But
Spiritual
I
fear.
think, yeah, well, yeah, that too. Money fear, spiritual fear. Sometimes we shouldn't live like that. But it probably informed your decisions around credit for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Yeah, and I've been hearing people say that too. Like people that don't have large amounts of credit card debt, like pay their expenses like with their credit card, and then you get all the benefits like the cash back and travel
Mm-hmm.
rewards, things like that. So it all works out. I think that's all our question. This was really helpful, very
Good.
informative, and you shared like a lot. Like just to be transparent about your debt is a lot, I'm sure, but you're on the other side of it now. So I'm sure now it's like you want to share that so that people can learn from your experiences as well. So thank you so
Of
much for
course.
your
Of course. I will
vulnerability.
just say this, like I can talk about it now. I know sometimes on social media or in a podcast format, everybody's like, oh, well, you're on the other side. So you don't, like it's been a while since you felt, but like, even when I was in it, I would say my one piece of advice is like, talk about it. Like, I feel like it's something people don't necessarily want to talk about, but it was so nice to like meet other college grads that were my age that were going through it because, let's be honest, there were some people at Elon who had their degree paid for and like just didn't really understand what it was like. But yes, talk about it, like connect with people, like find people who are willing to just sit with you when you're like, I'm stressed out. Well, why? Because I have this student loan debt. Like, well, what can I do even tonight? Can I show up with a pie pizza? Can we like just like decompress around it? You're going to need those people along the way so you don't have to feel like you're going it alone. But yes, absolutely. You don't have to wait till the end to celebrate your rainbow because the journey is part of it too.
No, I agree with that because I do think too, like I guess I hate to say this word, taboo is a taboo word, but it is like a taboo thing to talk about your debt. I don't think it is as much now. And that's why this workshop that I'm in is helpful because we're just all talking about our struggles and how we're going to like overcome it. And it's like, how you're right. Like, how can you really overcome this if you're not sharing or conversing about what a lot of people are struggling with? Like, no one's alone in this journey. So that's really valid. It's like a good nugget of advice is to talk about it with people that are going to listen to you and give you sound advice. Cause, the way that I knew I had debt, but I was like, oh, whatever, I'm going to be in debt forever kind of thing. That was my mindset. And then a family member got really got on me for like 3 days straight. I probably shared the story like many times in this financial series, but I was just like, oh my gosh. And it like really like brought shame. It like brought me shame. So I was like, okay, I got to make, it's like at the forefront of my head now. So,
oh, I'm sorry.
But it's okay. But it's okay. Thank you. It's like, yeah, it sucks, but it helped me to be like, oh, it checked me as well to try to make some better decisions about my finances. So yeah, it did. It hurt in the moment, but now I'm like, oh, okay, I can do this. So that's where I am.
You can do this.
I can. And one day, Kemi and I are going to interview each other about our debt-free journeys as well. So we'll be where you are.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, yeah. Do you want to shout out how people can like reach you if you're social media, email, and I'll put it in the show notes as well.
Sure. Yeah, you can reach out to me on my content strategist / like portfolio website at ashleystrahm.com. That's STRAHM. You can also find me, Ashley Strahm, on LinkedIn. Easiest way to find me. But yeah, message me anytime. I'm happy to like brainstorm, talk about like whatever. I feel like we should be a little bit of a collective, like a little bit of a community, because I feel like that's what it takes to get through. So here for you, and you got this.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Ashley, so much for your time. Again, for your transparency. That's really awesome. I know someone, I did myself. I know people are going to relate to this a lot and be inspired and encouraged by it because it's possible. So thanks so much for joining our podcast.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And thanks everybody for listening. We hope this encouraged you. We'll have many more episodes in our Money Matters series, so be sure to stay tuned. And if there's something that you want to hear about finances or financial literacy, let us know so we can talk about it between Kemi and I, or have guests on to share that with you as well. But you know where to find us on Instagram and TikTok, Yawson Podcast. If you want to email us, our email inbox is dry, so we want to hear from y'all. If you want to email us to give us other ideas, or if you want to hear things again, please let us know. But thanks for your support, and we'll see you in the next one. See you. Ooh, I'll just end it. That was awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's
of course. Thank you for having me.
Great journey. You're welcome. I'm gonna tell you in a second when this is going to come out.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening to the latest episode of Your Advisors Will See You Now. Please make sure to follow us on all of our social media pages and check out our website. Take a look at the show notes below.
And please make sure to subscribe and share this podcast. Also, show us some love and please leave a 5-star review. Catch you next time.
See ya.